Episode 7, Into the Depths. Evelyn and Lucas sprinted through the dense forest, the echoes of the whispering shadows trailing close behind. The air was thick with tension, every rustle of leaves or crack of branches sending a jolt of fear through their bodies. The forest seemed darker now, as if the shadows were growing bolder, more confident. It was no longer just the hollow man they were running from, an entire legion of shadow-bound figures was pursuing them, their eyes glowing with malice. "We need to find the runes," Evelyn shouted over her shoulder, her breath ragged. "If we don't close the gate soon, they'll keep coming." Lucas, keeping pace beside her, nodded grimly. "Do you know where to go?" "The altar was destroyed. We don't have much time." Evelyn's mind raced. The runes on the altar had been ancient, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. She had seen them, and memorized fragments of them in the chaos of the ritual, but now, as the terror of their pursuers gripped her, the details were fading. Suddenly, a memory sparked in her mind, the book her father had left behind before his disappearance. He had written about the Hollow Man, the ancient curse, and the rituals surrounding it. And though she hadn't fully understood it then, she recalled a passage that might hold the key. "There's an old cave, near the river," she shouted, urgency swelling in her voice. "My father wrote about it. It's where the original gate was opened centuries ago. The runes might still be there." Lucas nodded again, his face pale but determined. "Then let's go." The path toward the river was treacherous. Thick roots and jagged rocks littered the ground, slowing their progress as the shadows pressed closer. Every now and then, Evelyn caught glimpses of the figures in the trees, twisted, contorted shapes moving in unnatural ways, their glowing eyes watching, waiting for the moment to strike. Lucas stumbled on a root, nearly falling, but Evelyn grabbed his arm and pulled him back up. "Stay close," she urged. "We can't afford to split up." They pushed forward, the sound of rushing water growing louder with every step. As they neared the river, the forest seemed to thin, the oppressive weight of the shadows lifting slightly. But the danger wasn't gone, it was merely shifting, adapting. "There it is." Lucas pointed ahead. Through the trees, a rocky outcrop came into view, the mouth of the cave hidden behind a curtain of vines. It was ancient and ominous, the entrance like the gaping maw of some long-forgotten beast. The air around it seemed to hum with energy, a low vibration that sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. "This is it," she whispered. "This is where it all started." As they approached the cave, the whispers grew louder. The shadow-bound figures had stopped their chase and stood at the tree line, watching. They made no move to attack, as if waiting for something, or someone. Lucas glanced back at them, his face filled with unease. "Why aren't they coming closer?" Evelyn swallowed hard, her gaze fixed on the cave entrance. "This is sacred ground. They can't enter unless we let them." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "And we're going in." "We have to," she replied, her voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at her. "If the runes are still there, there are only chance of closing the gate." Taking a deep breath, Evelyn stepped forward, pushing aside the vines that concealed the cave's entrance. A blast of cold air greeted them as if the cave itself was exhaling, welcoming them into its depths. The interior was dark, the walls covered in slick moss and jagged rock formations. The deeper they went, the more the whispers faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. The cave was a labyrinth, twisting and turning in ways that made it difficult to keep their bearings. The walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, as though the stones themselves were alive, watching them as they moved deeper into the darkness. "Are you sure about this?" Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible in the stillness. Evelyn nodded, though doubt gnawed at her mind. She wasn't entirely sure, but she knew they had no choice. They had come too far to turn back now. After what felt like hours of walking, they came to a large chamber, the ceiling high above them, lost in shadow. In the center of the room stood an ancient stone altar, much like the one they had seen in the clearing, but this one was untouched, pristine. The runes etched into its surface glowed faintly in the darkness, their light casting eerie patterns on the walls. "This is it," Evelyn whispered, stepping closer to the altar. "The original gate." Lucas approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the chamber. What do we do now? How do we close it? Evelyn studied the runes, her mind racing. The symbols were similar to those on the destroyed altar, but there were more of them here, more intricate, more powerful. She reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the stone. The moment she made contact, a surge of energy shot through her, and the runes blazed to life. The room trembled, and a low, guttural sound echoed from deep within the cave. The gate was stirring. We have to perform the ritual again, Evelyn said, her voice shaking with the weight of what was to come. But this time, it has to be complete. No mistakes. Lucas hesitated. What do you need me to do? Evelyn swallowed hard, her mind working frantically to piece together the fragments of the ritual, trying to remember the final step that could save them both. The runes, she said, pointing to the altar. They need to be activated in a specific order, but I can't do it alone. Lucas stepped closer, his face tense. Tell me what to do. Evelyn ran her fingers over the glowing symbols, trying to remember. These runes represent the elements, earth, fire, water, and air. We need to activate them, one by one, while reciting the binding spell. If we do it right, it should seal the gate. Lucas nodded, determination replacing the fear in his eyes. I'll follow your lead. The chamber trembled as Evelyn began, her voice steady but urgent. She reached for the first rune, the symbol for earth, and recited the words of the ancient spell. As she spoke, the rune glowed brighter, and the room shuddered, as if the very ground was responding to her call. Now, fire, she instructed, her voice rising over the growing rumble in the cave. Lucas stepped forward, placing his hand on the fire rune. He repeated the words she had told him, and as he did, the rune flared to life, a brilliant red light illuminating the chamber. The gate was stirring. A low growl echoed from deep within the cave, a sound that chilled them to the bone. Hurry, Evelyn! Lucas urged. Evelyn's heart raced as she moved to the next rune, water. Her voice faltered for a moment as the growl grew louder, but she pushed through, reciting the spell with renewed determination. The room glowed with a cool blue light, the air growing colder around them. Finally, she reached the last rune, air. This was it, the final step. If they could activate this one, they could seal the gate and end the curse for good. But as she placed her hand on the rune, something went wrong. The chamber shook violently, and a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the cave. The runes flared with blinding light, and for a moment, Evelyn thought they had succeeded. But then, the light flickered, and the roar grew louder. No, this isn't right, she cried, her voice trembling with fear. The shadows that had been waiting at the edge of the forest began to move, creeping toward the cave entrance. The figures with glowing eyes were no longer content to watch, they were coming. We need to get out of here. Lucas shouted, grabbing her arm. But Evelyn hesitated, her eyes fixed on the altar. We're so close. We can't leave now,